My guest today is Vincent Gramoli. Vincent is the founder and CTO at Redbelly Network. It is purpose-built real-world asset tokenization network. Very interesting. We'll learn all about this today. Welcome to the show, Vincent.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is a pleasure. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, Vincent. It would be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. What have you been doing in the lead up to founding Redbelly Network?
Yeah, so I'm founder and CTO of Redbelly Network since 2021, when we created this joint venture with University of Sydney, CSIRO, which is the Commonwealth Science Industry Research Organization, and Blockade, which is a venture studio out of Sydney in Australia. But my background is academia, so I've been an academic for quite some time, working on distributed computing, which is part of computer science, and doing my research, especially on the consensus problem for 20 years. I started doing research in the US, and then I moved to France, where I did my PhD. I moved back to Cornell University, where I also worked on things related to distributed systems. Before moving to Switzerland, mainly at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, doing things on distributed systems as well, but at a smaller scale, on what we call multi-core architectures, before getting a position at the University of Sydney in Australia in 2012. I built my research group in Sydney, which is called the Concurrent System Research Group, and I've been lucky to have excellent, brilliant people working in this group, and we shifted from the research we were doing still in distributed systems, but at smaller scale, to look at larger scale problems, and in particular the blockchain technology. Around 2015, we designed a consensus protocol, which is called the Democratic Byzantine Tolerant Consensus Algorithm, with some applications for blockchain technologies, and we decided to implement in order to validate our hypothesis around the scalability of our consensus algorithm. We implemented it inside a blockchain software, and that became the Redbelly blockchain. I was also very lucky to receive funding from the Australian Research Council, more than $1 million, in order to do research in this area. And I've traveled around doing my research, mostly focusing on research and working at developing this Redbelly blockchain that got published in 2021 in the flagship security conference, IEEE S&P. And the same year, we decided to commercialize it into what is called now Redbelly Network, the company that is running it in a live network.
Very good. Thank you, Vincent. And really, this is about asset tokenization, real-world asset tokenization, isn't it? And I know you have kind of a solution which you call CAT, or a Compliant Asset Tokenisation solution. So maybe just to begin, Vincent, talk a bit more about what the vision is for Redbelly and why you want to build this tokenization network. What is the vision here?
Yeah, so we've been observing the blockchain space for quite some time, and what we noticed is that was back in 2017 when we were working with Ethereum at the time, which is a great technology, by the way, that allows people to write, any kind of programs on a blockchain, which is not just a simple script, but something that can be expressed in a Turing complete programming language. But we realized that there were weaknesses at times when our partners were using Ethereum. I'm thinking about the R3 consortium of financial institutions or Lab Bank here in Australia. They were using Ethereum in their testnet or lab environment. And then what we realized is that because of the forkable nature of the blockchain, which is the ability for the blockchain to fork into something that is no longer a chain, but more directed as cyclic graph or a tree, then there could be a risk that if this fork was going unnoticed for long enough, then someone could double spend. And this is what we realized when we did some network attacks against the exact same setting of the R3 deployment of Ethereum, as well as this large bank. We communicated this problem, but then we and some of the countermeasures that we provided to Geth security team and parity security team at the time had been implemented since then, so which is good. But still, it looks like, I mean, for us, it looked like there was a way to do things in slightly differently in order to prevent forks. And by doing that, we would strengthen the security of the blockchain technology to allow people to tokenize what we call high value assets. So that was really important for us to reach this security level because we believed in real world assets. And as soon as we're talking about real world assets, we immediately think about mortgages, houses, like things that people care about. And for this type of assets, you don't want to risk it on a blockchain that may fork or that may lead to a double spending attack. And that's how we built this technology towards or tailored for real world assets.
Got it. So essentially, Redbelly Network is kind of fork proof, thanks to your novel consensus mechanism. Redbelly Network. What's the? I'm sure there is a meaning, Vincent. What's the meaning behind the name?
Yeah. So there is an endemic snake that lives in the Sydney region that you might have heard of, especially if you live in Australia. I think it's not that popular all over the world, but at least in Australia, it's quite popular. It's a beautiful snake, that it's red and black. That's why it's called red-bellied black snake. And where I live, there are plenty of these. And if you think about a blockchain as a linear structure that keeps growing, you can think about a snake to some extent. And that's how the name Redbelly came up to describe the blockchain that was endemic to Sydney because it has been built from scratch in Sydney, Australia.
Got it. I like it. All right. So you talked about, the idea is to, tokenize high value assets, right, Vincent? So just expand on that slightly. Just give us, the different use case examples of what you mean by that.
Yeah, so definitely. So real world asset is something that is extending, right? It's forecast to be multiplied by 10 times, if not more, by companies like KPMG and so on by 2030. So it's a huge market in terms of assets that we're anticipating to tokenize, which is essentially the action of digitalizing these assets, right? The blockchain technology allows to track at any point in time the ownership of an asset, right? So the idea of applying blockchain technology to a real-world asset is essentially to make sure that we can upload to a blockchain technology these assets that represent real-world assets that exist in the real world, not just virtualized assets, but really real, like the digital representation of real-world assets. We talk about commodities. It could be gold, for example. It could be carbon footprint or carbon credit, but it could also be securities, right? We're talking about private equities, for example, or all types of securities that could be digitalized on a blockchain technology. And as soon as you do that, then you facilitate the transfer of these assets from one person to another. Why? Because the blockchain technology, and in particular Redbelly, allows you to have a quasi-instant finality. So in few seconds, you transfer your assets, you see that it has been transferred, and it reduces the time, it reduces the cost related to the time the assets are being transferred, and so it makes things more efficient. But it also lowered the barriers of entry to tradable assets to common people, not just traders in Wall Street.
Yeah. So do you see the compliant asset tokenization solution or bridge? Do you see that as being like a gap kind of between traditional regulated, the legacy financial system and a kind of future version of a decentralized Web3 economic system, Vincent?
Yeah, in particular, what we realized is that the blockchain system, it comes out of cypherpunks in the Silicon Valley, right? So originally, so it was really important, I think, at least at the beginning, that this system would be anonymous. Now, the problem is that we've realized is that there was a clash with regulation. Yeah. And we're seeing now the side effects of these clashes with, for example, the policy and the strategy that the SEC has taken. But globally, I think that there was a mismatch between the fact that we would like to anonymize the trading of assets, and in terms of Bitcoin initially, and also the need for people to have a legal recourse in case they get their assets stolen. Then they would like to have some help, especially from a government or an authority that can help them retrieve their lost assets, right? So there was this mismatch. Like, if we have complete anonymity, then there cannot be any intervention of a government or an authority to try to fix the problem if there is a problem. And so we've seen a series of attacks. There was a double spending attack against Bitcoin, against Ethereum Classic, and these are the attacks that we're aware of. There might be many more that we have that have been undetected so far. And I think it was important to come up with a solution that would bridge the gap between this blockchain or initial blockchain culture that was completely anonymous, or at least pseudonymous, and also this regulated environment that needed to at least authenticate some of the person who were trading on the platform. And so we developed this technology such that we would bring blockchain to a regulated environment where people will have a legal recourse if there is a problem. Of course, Redbelly is not the judge of anything, but it gives a way to track things by making sure that there are a real world individual between each account, as opposed to an AI bot, for example, or someone who do not exist. So that was very important, and that's really the mission of Redbelly, bridging this gap.
Got it. Thank you, Vincent. And in terms of the launch of the network, I suppose, just tell us where we are, because as I understand it, there is a test net at the moment, but the mainnet launch is coming up later this year. So just, talk us through that process and where we are at the moment.
Yeah, it has been a long journey, but we're quite happy about the current state where we're at. We started the DevNet development network in October last year. It was completely for testing purposes, right? So we would use individuals who wanted to join the development network had to use a fake identity, for example, like just to pretend that they had a fake identification document, and then they would pass this step, and they would automatically enter the development network, right? So that was really for test purpose. But that was back in October. Then in May this year, we have launched the testnet. And the testnet is a bit hybrid in the sense that people who want to join, they have to go through a real identification process. So they would typically select an identity provider of their choice, which is not related to the blockchain. I mean, we Redbelly Network suggests a partner that does this identity check, but none of the personal identifiable information is ever stored on the Redbelly network, of course. And then the user, once they have done these steps with real personal identifiable information, can enter the testnet, where essentially we don't have real assets yet. I mean, we're tokenizing real-world assets at the moment, but it's only for test purposes, right? So we're not fully in production. And the third step is to launch the mainnet. So the testnet is already up and running at the moment. We have nodes all over the world that are running the network. And the next step for us is to replicate this exact same setting that we have on the testnet on the mainnet, and that should happen in October. So pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, that is soon indeed. All right, and there's a DAO as well. So explain how the governance DAO works and how that is, I suppose, separate from Redbelly as an Australian company, I suppose, right?
Yeah. So so it was very important for Redbelly Network. So first of all, the network doesn't work exactly like what I would call a classic blockchain. One of the key aspects was, in order to achieve scalability, we had to come up with a collaborative strategy as opposed to competitive strategy. So if you think about classic blockchains, pretty much the idea is that you might have a lot of nodes that are contributing to the network, but only one of the node will win by imposing its block. So this node could be behind a mining pool. So of course there might be multiple contributors to this node that will produce the block. But at the end of the day, it's like you might have multiple blocks that are proposed for a given index of the chain, only one will win. So it's a bit of a competition where everyone is trying to impose its block to the rest of the system. But it's a waste of effort, we believed, a waste of energy as well. So what we decided to do is to have a collaborative approach instead. And here, and I will just briefly mention that because it's important to understand the governance process. But essentially, we're incentivizing people to try to propose blocks, but then we will not cherry pick one of the blocks, or there won't be a single winner that will impose its block to the rest of the system. It's collaborative in the sense that the blocks that are valid will be combined together in what we call the super block, and that's one of the novelty that we have patented. This super block is, as you can imagine, as a number of transactions that can grow linearly with the number of nodes that are contributing to the network, right? So it's a model where essentially we have a collaborative effort, and therefore the reward mechanism is rewarding all the contributors, all the proposers of blocks in the network, as opposed to Bitcoin, where you would have one winner of the lottery that will get all the reward. So that's important. But also we decided not to have, to incentivize all possible computers around the world to do the same thing, which is proposing block for the next available index. So we restrict the set of nodes that can do that. And we thought that a good number would be 200. The reason is that we have around the world around 200 countries or nations, right? And for each of these countries, we might have a different jurisdiction. So if we want to be decentralized, I think 200 is a good number. It's not too large, but it can be also representative of all the jurisdiction you could have around the world. Now, once we have these nodes that are proposing blocks and reaching consensus, what we call these nodes are governors. They are the nodes that have also the ability to say that a change will occur on the software or an upgrade should be done on the way the protocol operates, right? And this has to be done by these 200 nodes. Now, these 200 nodes rotate over time. So you have to think about that as representatives that have a mandate that would expire at some point in time. And then when their mandate expires, then we select another set of governors that is not necessarily identical to the previous one. So we rotate among all the nodes that are willing to be part of governance. We rotate periodically sets of governors every 2 weeks. So that's the way that the network operates, which is slightly different from traditional blockchain.
Yes.
And of course, in terms of governance, there are several phases that will be applied in order to reach this diversification.
Got it. Thank you, Vincent. Well, look, as we start to finish off this part of the podcast, just, be interested in your thoughts on, I suppose, where we are in the tokenization journey or movement, Vincent. So you said yourself you're going to Mainnet in October. There are lots of different, blockchain-based tokenization projects that are similarly in the process, I suppose, of launching. You've got some of the big financial institutions, the likes of BlackRock and so on, also conducting their own experiments or trials or testing the waters, if you like. Where do you think we are in terms of the real world asset tokenization space? When does it all really start to take off?
Yeah, that's really the beginning, and that's why it's such a promising area. Because really we're only scratching the surface at the moment. It's really good to see large institutions going down that path and trying to start tokenizing assets. At Redbelly, we have done that for quite some time. So we have designed a blockchain we've been working on since 2016, pretty much, for this type of application. So we're a bit ahead of the curve in terms of blockchain technologies that are tokenizing assets. We already have contracts to tokenize more than $73 billion in real-world assets. So it's extremely large compared to other TVL that you can find. For example, if you look at the DeFi Llama, you can find a ranking of the existing TVL on real-world assets, and this is way above these metrics, the amount that we have currently. We are day by day growing the amount of TVL that are currently being uploaded on the network. We are confident because we can see that the system is scaling pretty well, and the performance is to the level of our expectation. And but we're not there yet. We don't have yet the $73 billion that have been tokenized. It's just a process that is going on at the moment.
Of course. All right. Well, look, Vincent, for people that are interested in learning more about what you guys are doing at Redbelly, and they want to take a look under the hood at what you're doing, maybe get involved, just tell people what is the best way for them to do that. What should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, so there are several places to go online. The first resource is Redbelly.network, which is our website, and then you will find the links to our Discord, Telegram, LinkedIn, X channels where you can contribute. You can look for the at Redbelly Network on X, for example, if you want to get more information.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vincent. Of course, yeah, that link is in the show notes, folks. But yeah, redbelly.network. I guess then, Vincent, it is time to finish off the podcast, and we do that by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
Yeah, I'm not sure about what it is, but yeah, sure.
Don't worry, Vincent. I'm just going to run some questions at you. I just want you to give me your honest answers, hot take style. Question one for you is, Vincent, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Multi-chain versus Bitcoin maximalist. That's a very difficult question. I would sit. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin, but I'm also promoting interoperability. So I would sit in the middle. Sorry to be neutral.
No, that's absolutely fine. I understand. All right. What would you say then, Vincent, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
I think in order to democratize this beautiful blockchain technology, we need to find a recourse in order to protect citizens of countries. And that's why we need a blockchain that works in a regulated environment.
Yes, indeed. Very well said. All right. Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. 10 years is a long time, but, you know, I guess the real world asset tokenization space, 10 years time, what does it all look like, Vincent?
Oh, I think AI will play a significant role in simplifying and lowering the barrier of entry for people to start playing with blockchains that will be extremely secure, such that they will be able to trade their assets in a straightforward and almost instant fashion.
Yes, very much agree. All right. Sci-fi author William Gibson famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Vincent, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
That's a difficult question. I don't know. A future that is already here but not noticed. I think blockchain is already here. It's just not seen by a lot of people that will discover it in the coming years.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. It brings us nicely to our final question, Vincent, which is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I like 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yes. Arthur C. Clarke, Stanley Kubrick, the classic. Yes.
Yeah.
Monolith, Space, HAL 9000. Yeah, it's all in there. Very good. Hey, Vincent, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us today. All the best, and bye for now.